The wind whispered secrets across the empty plains, but Nathaniel Harlan had stopped listening long ago. Until the day a wounded Apache girl stumbled onto his ranch and asked the one question that could break him. "Tell me, what do you want from me?" Nate stood in the doorway of his small wooden ranch house, the sun burning low behind the distant hills. The girl, Ishta, she would later whisper, was leaning against the corral fence like the world had already beaten her. Her dark hair was tangled with dirt and dried blood. One arm hung limp. Her clothes were torn. She looked like she had run 1,000 miles and still expected the next step to kill her. He didn't speak at first. He simply walked inside, came back with a tin cup of cool water, and set it on the ground near her feet. Then he sat on the old bench, far enough away so she wouldn't feel trapped. No questions, no demands, just water and silence. Ishta drank slowly. When the cup was empty, she looked straight at him with eyes that had seen too much. Her voice was soft but steady. "Tell me, what do you want from me?" The words hit Nate like a fist to the chest. He had heard that question before, in different voices, in different places. Every time he had turned away from someone who needed help, those same words had followed him home and kept him awake at night. He rubbed the scar on his jaw and stared at the cracked earth. "Nothing," he said at last. "I don't want anything." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded once, as if she had decided to believe him for now. That night, Nate lay on his narrow bed and remembered the moment he had first seen her. 2 days earlier, on the dusty trail to town, he had watched 3 rough white men dragging Ishta and 2 other Apache prisoners behind their horses. The ropes bit into their wrists. The men laughed. Nate had gripped his rifle until his knuckles turned white. And then he had looked away, just like he always did. Just like the time he had ignored the cries from the burning cabin years ago. Just like the time he had left his own brother to face the outlaws alone. Turning away had kept him alive, but it had hollowed him out until he felt like an empty shell. This time, something inside him snapped. Under the cover of darkness, Nate rode back to their camp. He moved like a ghost. He fired shots into the air, scattered their horses, and shouted like a madman. Chaos exploded. The men cursed and ran for cover. In the confusion, Ishta broke free. She ran, she fell, she got up again. Nate found her collapsed behind a boulder, breathing hard, eyes wide with terror. "Come with me," he said quietly. "I won't hurt you." She stared at him, chest heaving. For a second, he thought she would run from him too, but something in his voice, maybe the same tiredness she carried, made her nod. He lifted her onto his horse and brought her to the ranch. The first weeks were quiet. Ishta spoke little. She slept in the small extra room, ate the simple food he left on the table, and always said thank you, like she was borrowing every breath. Nate worked the land during the day and sat on the porch at night, watching the stars. He never pushed her to talk. He simply left space for her to exist. One evening, while he was mending a harness, his old shoulder wound started bleeding again. Ishta appeared without a sound. She cleaned the cut with gentle hands, using herbs she had gathered from the hills. Her touch was careful, almost afraid, but her eyes were kind. "You carry pain too," she said softly. Nate swallowed hard. "Yeah, more than I deserve." That was the first night they really talked. She told him how the men had taken her from her people.
how they wanted Apache land and would use any excuse to steal it. How she had fought until they broke her body, but not her spirit. Nate told her about the mistakes that haunted him. Lives he could have saved if he hadn't been so scared of getting hurt himself. For the first time in years, the heavy weight in his chest felt a little lighter. They began to share small things. She helped him fix the leaky roof. He showed her how to milk the old cow. They worked side by side without needing many words. Sometimes she would hum an Apache song while stirring the pot. Sometimes he would catch her smiling when the sunset painted the sky gold. Slowly, the silence between them stopped feeling empty. It started feeling like home. But peace never lasted long on the frontier. One morning, Nate rode into town for supplies and heard the whispers. A dangerous tracker named Luther Strain was coming. He was famous for hunting runaways and collecting rewards, dead or alive. The townspeople were already sharpening their anger against the Apache. Ishta's face was on a wanted poster nailed to the general store wall. When Nate returned, he found Ishta packing a small bundle. Her hands shook. "I will go," she said. "I am a burden. They will come for me and hurt you too."
Nate felt the old fear rise, the same fear that had made him turn away so many times before. But this time, he looked at her and saw not just a girl in trouble. He saw someone who had fought to live, just like he was trying to do. "No," he said, voice rough. "Not this time. I'm not running anymore, and you're not leaving to protect me." Ishta's eyes filled with tears. "Why? Why would you risk everything?" "Because I'm tired of being alone," he answered. "And because you make me remember what it feels like to care about someone again." They made a plan together. Nate would ride out and lay false trails to confuse Luther and his men. Ishta would slip away through the hidden canyons and lead the remaining Apache prisoners to safety in the hills. It was risky. It was terrifying. But for the first time, they were choosing to stand together. The night of the escape, everything went wrong. Gunshots cracked through the darkness. Nate's horse went down. A bullet grazed his side. Pain exploded across his ribs. He kept moving anyway, shouting directions to draw the trackers away. Luther's voice boomed through the night. "You can't hide her forever, Harlan." Nate fell behind a rock, blood soaking his shirt. He thought of all the times he had walked away. This time he refused. He fired back until his gun clicked empty. Then he heard footsteps, soft, quick. Ishta appeared out of the shadows, eyes fierce with worry. "You came back," he whispered, shocked. "I could not leave you," she said, voice breaking. "Not when you stood for me." She helped him up. Together they stumbled through the night, her arm around his waist, his weight leaning on her. They reached the ranch just as the first light of dawn touched the hills. Inside the house, Ishta tore clean strips from an old shirt and pressed them to his wound. Her hands trembled as she worked. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I was so scared," she admitted. "Scared you would die because of me." Nate lifted a shaky hand and brushed a tear from her face. "I was scared too. Scared of losing the only person who ever made me want to stay." The words hung between them like a promise. The fear, the pain, the loneliness, they all melted into something warmer. Ishta rested her forehead against his. For a long moment, neither spoke. They simply breathed together. Later, when the danger had passed and the trackers had given up, they stood on the porch watching the sunrise. Ishta looked at him with quiet hope. "If I want to stay, not because I have nowhere else,
but because I choose to. Would that be all right? Nate's heart swelled until it hurt. He smiled, the first real smile in years. Then stay, he said. Stay because you want to, not because you have to. The next morning they walked out to the broken fence that marked the edge of the ranch. Nate picked up the hammer. Ishta handed him the nails. Together they lifted the old wooden posts and hammered them straight. The work was hard. His side still ached. Her arm was still sore. But every nail they drove felt like they were building more than a fence. They were building a life. Where once there had been only dust and silence, now there was laughter when she teased him about his crooked hammering. There were quiet evenings when he listened to her stories of her people. There was the soft touch of her hand on his when the old nightmares came. The ranch was no longer a hiding place. It had become a home. Nate looked across the land and saw green shoots pushing through the dry earth, life where nothing had grown before. He glanced at Ishta, her face peaceful in the golden light, and felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. They had both stopped running. They had chosen to stay. And in the space between two broken hearts, healing had finally begun. Thank you for riding along on this story. Drop your location and time one more time if you'd like. And if it touched you, like send some stars, follow, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. See you in the next tale. See you in